everybody, and welcome back. I am the Sovereign, and this is my court. If this is your first time in attendance, hello. Please consider hitting the subscribe button before you leave our kingdom. Today, we are going to talk about the most nerve-wracking, anxiety-provoking segment of any major pageant. The interview portion. Every pageant fan knows this already, but if you were unaware, all major pageants have the competitors participate in a closed-door interview segment where they really try to get to know the competitors, kind of pick their brains, see how much knowledge they have within them, test their level of intellect. And the questions can range almost anything from your family history and background to your major and areas of study to political influences to legislation. I mean, the realm is nearly endless. So it's very difficult for a lot of competitors to study and anticipate what the judges are going to throw at them, whether it be during closed-door interview or on-stage Q&A. And of all the times competitors may be nervous, I think most of them are in agreement that the interview segment of competition is the most nerve-wracking, like anxiety-provoking. You have these people sitting there staring at you, questioning you. It almost feels sometimes like an interrogation. We don't, want it to feel that way, but sometimes it can feel that way in a competitive environment. So I have put together a very basic study sheet, study guide that I think every pageant queen should be well versed in order to handle most questions with elegance and grace. This is just a basic list to prevent any major slip-ups and to really cover almost any question that you potentially could be asked on stage or off. I didn't necessarily number this in any particular order, though the final thing that I do say on this list is extremely important. So it's kind of important to make it to the end, because there's some important stuff over there too. The first thing, area, realm you should study before heading into competition or any interview is the legislation within your country, the current relevant legislation that has your congressional leaders, your leadership talking about. These are things that are current, that are relevant, and that are going to immediately impact the lives of the people that you are supposed to be representing. This is going to be on the forefront of most people's minds, and you should know what your leadership is putting forth to the public and what is driving the conversation. It is very difficult to be a representative of any region, state, nation, province, or country if you do not know the problems that that society is facing and what the current leadership is doing to remedy the issue. Going off of what I was just saying, another area that you should be well versed in is who are the political leaders within your region, nation, state, province, or country. If you are striving to be a representative yourself, you need to know who are the policy pushers in your area. What are they pushing? What are their backgrounds? What are they advocating for? If you want to be a leader, it helps to know who the other leaders are. I think even a passive pageant fan would find it a bit embarrassing if you didn't know, for example, who the president or prime minister of your country was. I think that that's a base level of knowledge that is expected of most citizens. So you definitely want to have at least the base knowledge of your fan base, but in order to be someone who can teach people, in order to be someone who can impart knowledge unto others, you do have to possess more knowledge than the average person. So you should be much more knowledgeable than an average pageant fan of your leadership, legislation, political backgrounds in your nation. If you want to be a representative, you really got to act like it, and you really got to know what's in the know and what's in the now. The next thing you really want to be versed in, especially if you are a woman competing for any title, is women's rights within your country, nation, region, province. You need to know what struggles women are facing within your area so that you can better advocate for women's empowerment, women's rights. A lot of pageants, being that it's dominated by women, really push a women's empowerment message. If you don't know what you're supposed to be empowering, you're not going to be a very good representative, are you? These are questions that are going to be asked eventually, whether it be closed-door interview, on-stage Q&A, or even during a TV televised interview. These are things that people are going to expect queens to know, understand, and be able to have a conversation about. So be very specific on what's happening within your region when it comes to women's rights, but also do your best to learn from other countries, whether they're doing not as well as your country or if they're doing better. You should know what's going on around the world when it comes to women's issues so that you can also add that to your knowledge. It really helps you in a closed door interview if you are able to show people that you have gone the extra mile to truly study and understand the issue that you're discussing. It really is an impressive thing if you are not only able to discuss your area, but you are able to draw from the knowledge or happenings of other areas, meaning you've thoroughly researched the globe and you really have an in-depth understanding on the issues that women face globally, around the world, socially, all that. The more well-rounded your knowledge can be, the better. So do not be afraid to pull from other countries, learn from other countries, understand other countries. Most, especially the major pageants, they have international pageants and you are still fighting to be a global representative. So you want to be readying yourself to take on those questions when it comes to other countries and the struggles other women face outside of the women that you can nationally relate to. This concept should also be applied to other areas of the list. I am an American citizen, but that does not mean that I am ignorant to certain legislations that's happening in India, for example. I know the struggles that farmers have been facing in India. I know the conservative nature of the Philippines. I am aware of different areas and perspectives of different people, even though I'm not from those countries. It helps me to have a more worldly understanding of where certain people are coming from. It helps me to learn and lessen conflict because a lot of conflict comes from not understanding another person. So the more you can work to understand someone and show yourself to be a potential global representative, the more likely people are going to see you in a higher favor. Environmental activism and circumstances. You want to learn about the environment within your country and around the world and how different countries, your country, other countries impact each other, influence each other, impact your own country. This has been a major hot topic that we have seen growing for many, many years. And we want to put an asterisk next to this when it comes for women vying for Miss Earth titles, because obviously a lot of your questions are going to specifically come from this area. That doesn't necessarily mean negate the rest of the list, but specifically for Miss Earth, it's a bit of a different study list because they're so in-depth in this specific area, but that does not mean that other women should not know. We have seen these questions asked on stage. I know that they're being asked in closed-door interview. This is such a hot topic, an important topic, that it is imperative that you know as much about the environmental policy within your region, within your state, the effects of major businesses and industries and how that impacts the population, the public, your viewpoint on it. You want to have all this developed and well-rounded before you get asked the question. You don't want to get caught slipping. I don't think that I have watched a international pageant yet that did not have at least one question in relation to environmental awareness and activism. So it's pretty much a guarantee that you will be asked your viewpoint, your stance on circumstances involving the environment. The next thing we want to kind of be well-versed in is pageant history, which may seem like, why? Like, why are we being, just why? Hear me out here. Hear me out. Number one, when you eventually get the question of who is your favorite past, title holding queen, you don't want to necessarily say a queen from a different organization. Whatever crown you may be vying for, you really want to showcase how dedicated and devoted you are to the current organization that you are fighting for. You don't want to really be naming queens from outside organizations, not to say that they can't be uplifting and upheld and wonderful. Obviously, I talk about many different organizations, but if you're fighting for a Miss Grand title, you might want to name a Miss Grand Queen. And you will likely be asked specifically by fans, who's your favorite queen from past years, previous editions, who's your favorite runner-up. It also helps to know your pageant history when it comes to understanding who won and why they won. For example, all of the questions, the Q&A questions and answers that happen on stage, it helps that you have studied those Q&A segments so that you know what those winners did right, what really set them over the edge to help them get the win. Sometimes the answers to the toughest questions are already out there. These questions have already been asked and answered, and it really helps to understand who answered those questions really well, how they did it, and you have that in the back of your mind, so that when those difficult answers come to you, you already kind of have a roundabout knowledge of what to say. Now, don't ever copy another queen's answer. The fans will call you on it. Look, I know fans that have books, okay, entire notebooks filled with like knowledge of queens, okay? They are that devoted. So never copy another queen. You don't want to get caught doing that. But study the past so that you do well in the future, because most of the questions and answers and all the stuff that you're going to be asked has already been asked to another queen before. So learn from them and then build on it. The next thing you want to keep an eye on, maybe study a little bit, social media. No matter what anybody wants to say or think, social media does play a kind of important role when it comes to pageant world and competitions. Social media is the point of access that most queens have to interact directly with the pageant fan base. Social media can also give you hints on what's current, what's happening, what's relevant, what is on the forefront of people's minds. This really gives you a sneak peek on what might be coming your way. You really want to kind of keep an ear close to the ground about what the fans are talking about, because the organization is well aware of what's important to the fans, what the fans are talking about, and they just might ask what your opinion on it is. A lot of topics outside of yourself will be drawn from what is currently relevant in the news in your nation or internationally. So the more knowledge, once again, that you can have about what is relevant is going to help you and potentially save you from an embarrassing moment. And the number one thing you should know, you should study before attempting any interviews, televised interviews, in-person interviews, closed-door interviews, any interviews. The number one thing you should know completely and thoroughly is yourself. I know. That doesn't, I just hear me out, okay? You guys know I got you right. When I say yourself, I mean this: your morals, your ethics, your values, your purpose. Almost any question you could possibly be asked across the spectrum of questions that are possible is going to draw on one of these things, and it's going to push you to really explore your own morality or ethics. When you're getting questions about women's rights or women's empowerments, they're really asking you about your personal view on your personal ethics when it comes to women and where women should be in life. They're asking you, what do you personally view as a woman's place in society? You cannot answer any of these questions without having thought about it previously. You cannot tell me what your viewpoint on what women's role in society is if you don't know your own ethical standpoint of what a woman's role is, if you don't know what you personally believe a woman's value should be. Should a woman value her children above all and simply be a homemaker? Or should a woman's value apply to herself and bettering herself as a person? You really have to explore these ideas within yourself before you can impart that knowledge to somebody else. So it's really important to just like sit back with yourself and understand your personal views. What do you value? Are you extremely religious? Are you extremely conservative? Is there something you think is really important? What do you truly value in life? Do you value education? Do you value moments and memories? Do you value your family? Do you value your experiences? What is your purpose in life? Are you striving to just live the most glamorous life you possibly can? Do you want to leave an impact on the world? Well, what type of impact do you want to leave? These are very expandable topics, and every question that you give yourself can then drive into a new question. Like, you can always snowball this and grow your ideas more and more and more. Like when I decided to be a YouTuber, it's like, great, okay, I'm gonna be a YouTuber. But then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what is your channel going to be about? Do you want to do funny stuff? Do you want to do jokes? Do you want to do pranks? Do you want to do politics? And then it's like, okay, well, I decided I want to talk about pageants, for instance. And then it's like, okay, you want to talk about pageants? Well, what about pageants? Do you want to talk about one pageant, all pageants, women's pageants, children's pageants, men's pageants? And then you got to answer that question. And it's like, okay, well, I'll do all the women's pageants. It's like, well, then why won't you talk about the male pageants? And what are you going to say when people ask you to do men's pageants? Is that going to be enough for you? Will you eventually be bored, only ever talking about pageants for years? It's a real snowball effect. And yes, you guys, we will be discussing men's pageants. Just saying. I've heard you. Okay. I attempted to do a video on it like 2 years ago and it just never got posted, but I did do a video. Back to interview skills though, learning about yourself is an endless journey. And I'm sure I sound like a self-help book right now, but hopefully I'm able to say it in layman's terms so you more understand what it means to learn about yourself. You're learning about your own ideas, your own morals, your own values, your own ethics, and it is endless. There's so much you can learn about yourself, even if it's something like your personal style. There's so much to learn about yourself that it's something that you should be expanding upon for the rest of your life. And it's the number one thing you need to know before going into a closed door interview. Because honestly, the judges can really understand a woman, like they can see if you don't know who you are, if you don't really have an established set of views or morals or purpose. I do have a few extras here, just a few extras that might kind of put you over the edge or really have your back in a tight situation. So you want to, number one, make sure you have a favorite queen within the organization you are vying, that whatever title you're trying to get, have a favorite queen that you can talk about, that you are knowledgeable about, that you can tell people why she's your favorite and the type of impact that she's made. Have that on the back burner just in case, trust me. Have a favorite book you can quote from. It is very impressive when a woman is able to demonstrate her knowledge, her skills, and her diligence by being able to quote a person, a book, anything, any type of knowledge. If you're able to put that into words in front of people, it is very impressive. So you want to make sure that you have a book that you can reference when it comes to sometimes tough questions. And lastly, you want to have a favorite influential figure. Lord have mercy, it happens every time. I don't like, it's such a common question, and I have seen women fail repeatedly, and I've seen it happen on stage. I think we've all seen it happen on stage. A woman gets asked, who's your favorite influential figure, or what do you think about this person? And they don't really have a good backstory. It's really obvious when you pull someone off the top of your head, just to save yourself, and it's not really somebody that you truly have a connection to or that you truly understand or have researched in any way. You're just trying to give an answer. The judges can usually tell. You want to be knowledgeable and in at least one person who influenced you in some way outside of your family. I'm truly talking about an influential figure. It doesn't really matter what pageant you possibly may be vying for. The question will be asked. So be prepared and be able to tell the person asking you why that person is an influential figure. Because most people can suss out a liar. If you're lying, they're gonna know. Because if you tell me Martin Luther King is my most favorite influential figure, you know what we're gonna do? You know what people are gonna do? They're gonna say, what do you like about him? What do you think about his policies? What do you think about this? What do you think about his backstory? What part of his legacy do you find the most influential? You need to be prepared to answer those questions, because people are going to call you on your BS if you choose an influential figure that you don't know anything about. So you're welcome. So this is just my brief little study guide study sheet that will likely keep you out of any major issues going into any interview in any competition, internationally, nationally. As long as you are pretty well versed in these areas, you will be able to cover most topics and probably impress some judges. As I stated, all of the ideas presented here should be expanded upon as much as possible. If you're studying the legislation, study it in depth, read it if you can, pull out segments that you agree with and that you don't agree with. When it comes to influential figures, you don't necessarily have to have one, you can have 5, have as many as you possibly can, and know as much about those people as you can. When it comes to environmental knowledge, expand upon that as much as possible, whether it comes to air, oceans, oil, pollution, plastic, fracking, fires, forests. There are so many topics within that realm of study that the knowledge that you accumulate and acquire throughout all of this should be endless. I just gave you a starting point. In the comments section below, let me know what you guys think about my little simple study guide. Is there anything that you personally think should be tacked on there? Or is there something specific to your individual country that all women should be knowledgeable about? Because like I said in the video, there are some areas that are country specific, culturally specific, that certain women within certain regions should know. So impart your knowledge unto everyone, and maybe we all can take a little bit of knowledge from this and learn ourselves. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and remember, I love you and I will miss you, but you know I will be back in a future video. Bye!